Alright, for part 2 of my top 15 albums of 2015, we're going to be kicking things off with Surf by Donnie, Trumpet, and the Social Experiment. I wrote this in my short little blog write-up of this album too, but fun is really the only way that Surf can be described. Thanks in part to a bunch of amazing cameos. You got Busta Rhymes, J. Cole, Big Sean, Erykah Badu, a stellar verse from B.O.B., it goes on and on and on. But of course, it's kind of considered by the public to be an unofficial Chance the Rapper project because he shows up on 9 of the album's 16 songs. Though Donnie Trumpet's sound is really at the heart of this. Every song has warm horn arrangements. You can almost put it into like a big band category, even though there's a real hip-hop influence throughout. But I would be full of shit if I said I was here for any other reason but Chance, who turns in another performance that just... This guy, we talk about like the best rappers in modern hip-hop. People usually say Kendrick, J. Cole, and then Logic comes up, Wale comes up. But Chance the Rapper is number 3 for me. Just his flow is so unique. His sound is so singular. And he just doesn't give a fuck. He will go with any cadence, any wacky voice, any subject matter that he wants, and he genuinely does not care. And that's what makes any Chance the Rapper verse such a compelling listen. Unfortunately, Mr. Wonderful by Action Bronson is not on this list, but his verse on the song Baby Blue is like the hip-hop verse of the year. It's like, I hope you work at a Fridays that's always busy on Fridays. I hope there's always snow in your driveway. It's just like, he's so funny, so entertaining, and he continues to be on Surf. But really the quality of the songs is there too, aside from Chance's great performance as a rapper. A few of my favorite tunes on here are Warm Enough, Wanna Be Cool, and Go. It's not for everybody, but it was certainly for me. I'd urge anybody with any passing interest in hip-hop, pop, or even jazz to give Surf a listen. Mr. Misunderstood, the surprise release from country rock superstar Eric Church. I mean, hey, Beyonce did it. Hip-hop's been doing it pretty much since Beyonce did it. Why can't country have a little bit of a surprise release from one of its biggest artists? I actually did a blog review of this one. I'll put that link in the description. I described his style as like he's treating rock, pop, blues, and country almost as like a Four Corners monument. The way you'd visit the monument out west and step in all 4 states at once is very much what Eric Church does in terms of genres. And Mr. Misunderstood is his best blend to date of all 4 of them. And even better, he's a country artist and he's not singing about buying boats or drinking on planes or any of these horrible cliches that are just ruining pop country right now. The lyrics on Mr. Misunderstood are actually a high point, if not the high point. He's got this really touching song about his 3-year-old son teaching him lessons about life. He's got this fun double entendre called Record Year. The title track speaks to a whole generation of outcasts like any great metal or rock song would. Mr. Misunderstood honestly transcends country. It just does, and that's what makes it an album of the year, even though I'm really not in that world. Ghost, Meliora, the band's 3rd album. This short clip right here should pretty much sum up my feelings on this album. This is a really fascinating trajectory because Ghost's first album, Opus Eponymous, it was supposed to be this big, great album, and I was just like, it's average. Second album, now they're called Ghost BC. It sucks. It's a sophomore slump. And here they come back with a stellar album, one of the metal albums of the year. For me, at least, it all just came together here. The playing, the writing, the performances. He is one of the best metal ballads I've ever heard, period. And Cerisi, along with Lamb of God's 512, is my favorite metal song that I heard in 2015. It even got a Grammy nod, which was super exciting. That stomping fucking riff in that song is just ridiculous. But the thing is, for classic hard rock and metal fans, this is a very appealing album. But for modern fans, it's such a melodic album. So you don't have to be a metal fan even. Like, sonically, it doesn't have that punch. Like, the kick drum isn't all clicky and everything. It sounds like a hard rock album. It just happens to be played like a Deep Purple, Blue Oyster Cult, Metallica, and Iron Maiden mix. Meliora certainly sits in my top 5 for 2015, and it is frankly a must-listen for rock and metal fans. Alright, To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar. This is going to be really fucking short because there's nothing I have to say about this album that hasn't already been said in a more articulate and more in-depth way somewhere on the internet. This is just a monumental release in hip-hop, in popular music, in art, period. It's the undisputed album of the year. I realize that if you're not a real in-depth hip-hop fan, you're going to miss a lot of the references, a lot of the technical things that make it great, the lyricism, the production, all the references to the classic West Coast artists. But if you listen to what he's saying, if you watch the intricate narrative just weave from track 1 to Mortal Man at the end where he interviews Tupac, it's impossible to miss the genius of To Pimp a Butterfly. Next up, we have Lamb of God's 7th album, Sturm und Drang. Thought I'd take a stab at it. The first album following Randy's very public, very dramatic manslaughter case and trial for which he chronicled in his new book, Darkest Days. Talk about lemons and lemonade. Whatever Randy and the band went through between Resolution and this album resulted in their most ferocious and, in Randy's case, lyrically focused album to date. Something I've always really admired and I thought really set Lamb of God apart was the lyrical content. The fact that there was something being said, however cynical and angry and sometimes barbaric it was. There was always something being said. You could always understand what it was. And with this album, that thing that's being said is 50 times more potent. I mean, right from the opening track, still echoes. That line, a legacy of collapse built on a painful truth, that is fucking hard. Not to mention Overlord, which is a whole other discussion, really. But the fact that Randy branched out and sang, I could not be more supportive. I know a lot of people, of course, were in an uproar because there's melody on a Lamb of God record, but it just made the contrast that more stark at like the 3:30 mark, like 3-minute 30-second mark or whatever, when the song just explodes. Instrumentally, the band is once again in top form, as if that should really come as a surprise to anybody, but they've written some of their best material to date on here. 512, which got a Grammy nod, in addition to the Ghost song that I mentioned earlier. Embers, featuring Chino of the Deftones. I'm not really a Deftones fan, so I need to go back and listen to those Deftones albums because his part, when the bridge comes in, and he comes in, might be the best moment on the album. That song in general is my favorite, along with 512. Still Echoes, as I mentioned earlier, Overlord, as I mentioned earlier, Erase This. And that's all the first half of the record. Second half still holds up with songs like Delusion Pandemic. All in all, the best album debate as a Lamb of God fan is kind of futile because you got the fans who think that, like, post New American Gospel and post Burn the Priest, Lamb of God is shit. You have the majority of people who think that Ashes of the Wake is the definitive Lamb of God album, and you're going to have a lot of people like this person on the screen right here who are going to get behind this album. But really, it's just another great album from Lamb of God, and overall, one of the most outstanding metal releases of 2015.